Those are insights that you'll develop over time, but you have to have the right skilled people on in your partnership who know how to look at that, who can identify a red flag and say this is a deal breaker, or it's just a risk we have to mitigate.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are enjoying this show, getting some great value as a real estate investor, I need your help. Leave me some honest feedback, leave a rating and review wherever you listen to the show. That helps us and helps other listeners get great value out of this podcast. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, we've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to John Todderud. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Now, John Todderud is a multifamily investor and syndicator focusing on sourcing, underwriting, sponsoring, and raising capital for deals. Now, he began in real estate during his software and technology career, buying multifamily real estate, first smaller properties, and then moving on to larger acquisitions. John is now a full-time real estate investor focused on multifamily. Let's welcome to the show, John Todderud.
Hey, John, thanks for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. You've got an awesome podcast, and I'm really looking forward to sharing a few things about my insights and experiences, good and bad, and hopefully providing some good, useful content for people listening in.
Yeah, absolutely. John, it's great to have you on. I went over your bio at a very high level. Take 2 minutes and fill in those gaps.
Yeah. I started with I kind of had a risk-taking personality from a younger age, and my career has been trying to channel it, trying to keep it in focus and understand it and take steps to harness it and mitigate risks. And so I started off in a technology career. I had a lot of great software related jobs, engineering and managing and consulting, and had my own business and migrated to more diverse consulting roles and had a 401k all along. I mean, just like everybody else, we save our money and we're socking away as much as we can, and we've got families to raise, and we're not taking huge risks and all that, and realized that wasn't getting me where I wanted to go, and discovered real estate. This is about 13 years ago, and through family discussions, bought our first properties, just small properties, managed them myself, and learned from it, sold them, bought bigger properties. And along the lines, I started going to multifamily conferences, and I love them. I love meeting people, and I discovered that this, it's such a relationship business. I learned syndicating along the line, took classes in coaching and mentoring, and started syndicating probably about 7 years ago. And I, still held my W-2 job and was able to find time to do that. As another major learning process is, where do I find the time to do the things that are really needed in real estate? But it's fun. You learn that there's a lot of things that are just so engaging and enjoyable along the lines for pursuing real estate, and it becomes an end in itself. It's not only making us some money, but it's making us friendships, and it gives us purpose and guidance, and have grown since then. I've syndicated a number of different properties. I've had properties of my own, and I've looked in so many different markets. I'm from Seattle, of course, and I bought here, and then I discovered other markets. Seattle's a great market, and maybe not so great for a lot of reasons, but every market has the same qualities. And so that's what I do, is I look for markets and look in other markets. And I'm still buying real estate today. I haven't had my W-2 job for a while, and love it. Love what I'm doing, and I'm so glad that I found it.
John, you talked about your background, being not risk averse, but I guess willing to take risk as a younger person. You get into your corporate career. Ultimately, you find real estate, get into syndications while working that W-2 job and investing kind of in different places throughout the country, focusing on finding the right markets to invest. Let's start there, right? So you live in Seattle and you've talked about it was challenging working that W-2 job and launching kind of this syndication business.
Yes.
Why did you feel the need to focus on syndications as opposed to maybe single family rentals or flipping or some other form of business?
Okay, let's take single families and flipping. I did look into that, and I came close to doing that, and I saw a lot of people in my area who were successful at it, and it sounded interesting, fun, and profitable, and I almost did it. I realized earlier on that this is a full-time job and something that'll keep me busy. It's a one-time payoff. It's not really, I mean, you could hold a rental property, of course, and a lot of people do, but it wasn't the right fit for me. And then I learned about multifamily, small apartments, and reliable recurring income, money that you make when you're asleep. It's a cliche, but it's true. And so I chose multifamily rather than single family. For that reason, is I wanted to hold. I wanted to do things to the property and be able to hold it. Uh, and so plus all of the hands-on contractor management was not one of my skills. I mean, I understand building systems now, and I know how to analyze certain repairs that are needed in a multifamily property and unit repairs, renovations, what you're going to do to that. But I didn't know that back then, and I didn't feel confident in myself. And I know a lot of people get started in it, and they're in the same boat. They don't really know it, and then they learn. And it's true for all of us. Nothing wrong with it. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't the right learning process, leveraging my skills and background that was going to make me successful in this. But it can be a great start. Absolutely. I mean, my start at the beginning was owning them in my own backyard, half an hour down the road. And so I was the person going down and fixing things initially. And I was, of course, writing leases and placing ads for tenants, interviewing them, and taking the calls day or night, whether if there's a problem on the property, some tenant has a problem, it's my property. Ultimately, I'm responsible. I'm going to get it fixed. And so learning how to do that, learning how to spend my time and finding other people to do things that I had been doing is a learning process. A lot of people like doing that. And I realized I have to step out of that. I have to have people doing this
Yeah.
work. And so it's figuring these things out. And those are transferable skills. You go to a bigger multifamily property and you're glad that you did those kinds of things early on.
Yeah, John, you said something that really stands out, right? First of all, I think it's important, especially for newer investors who are trying to figure out which strategy is right for them. But like one of the beauties of real estate, but also the challenges, there's so many different strategies. Figuring out what works for you may take a little bit of time. And you just said that it wasn't the right fit. You also talked about your skills, right? So I think it's really important to think about the fit and your skill set because some of these strategies are really full-time jobs versus focusing on passive income. You talked about going out there and having to fix up some of those properties, driving around, putting out the ads, really overseeing contractors. That stuff takes work, right? You have to develop the skill set and have the processes and systems to do that. And it's not to say that, hey, investing in larger syndications or apartments are easy, but it's to understand that it's just a different system. It's a different fit, it's different skills. And you talked about transferable skills. It really is important to take a look at what you do well, what you can, accelerate and lean into that skill set. You also talked about being hands-on the properties in your backyard, right? So you're in Seattle, you are buying properties within a 30-minute drive, going down, fixing up some stuff yourself, placing those ads yourself, being kind of a hands-on property owner. And then eventually you transition to investing in out-of-state properties. Talk to me about the difference between a hands-on investor and a hands-off investor.
Yes. I would, having owned the small properties near me, and knowing the amount of time it was taking from me, and I was successful in it. I got better tenants and I got higher rents and it stabilized and better income. And so it grew the equity. I was able to sell those properties. And then the next properties I bought, I thought, well, I can't be too far from my home. They were 2 or 3 hours away or so in another part of my state. And then I had to hire a property manager. I was ecstatic that I could step out of managing those properties myself and get a property manager, knowing that, oh, I'll just go out there every couple of weeks and look at these properties. But when you get a property manager on it, they are the hands-on people. They will make or break your property. And granted, I had some bad property managers, and I have had to switch them sometimes and throughout my ownership. But they are the people that I'm communicating with, and I'm working with them. I'm not working with tenants at that point. And once you realize, even if a property is not too far away, if you got professional property management, you can buy anywhere in the U.S. You don't have to have something in your backyard. So instead of thinking, I need to drive by the property and put my hands on it, visually look at it, that's a little bit of a myth. You don't have to do that. You can figure out other ways of seeing that property and even getting third party objective views of that property. And then you can think about where are the good markets around the US, emerging markets and markets that have various qualities and look in those and talk to brokers and find properties in those markets. And those markets are where your population and I mean, there's a whole lot of, we can go into all the attributes of a good emerging market, jobs growth and companies moving in and the competition, you like a lot of competition, a little bit, all this, whatever your requirements are, you can find markets that fit those requirements. And so that's what I did. I was looking at other markets around the US and then started buying there and finding partners who had similar interests in those markets. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a very enlightening transition. Something we
John,
should.
you hit on a couple of things there. One, you mentioned that you learned a lot being hands-on, but you also realized you didn't have to do all this work yourself. So as you bought that property a couple hours away, hired a property manager, and now your job was really manage the manager. And it may be a challenging concept for people to process, but because real estate investors, we love control, right? That's one of the reasons we go to real estate is we like the control,
Yes.
but that control can also hinder your growth. So if you can learn that someone needs to be hands-on, it doesn't have to be you. Your role at that point becomes to manage the manager. So you kind of step back into more of an executive role. And this is true for every entrepreneur, right? Every business owner, they feel like they've got to do it, right? I'm the only one that knows how to do this, right? Or, hey, it's got to be done this way. The truth is, someone else can absolutely do it. Maybe they don't do it exactly like you do it, but they can do it 80%, 85, maybe even 90% of how you would do it. The key for you is to figure out what do you need to help them with and how do you make sure that the business is growing? And then how do you focus your time and energy on aspects that actually grow the business, grow the portfolio? Again, we're talking real estate, but this is really true for any business. And that's something that a lot of real estate investors have to process. So I'm glad to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. I had a lot of that experience in my background, having owned a business and been in management roles. I mean, working for a corporation, it's a little bit different, of course, because you've got a lot of different responsibilities. You still have bosses, and you still have other people that you're responsible for. But it's good. It's a good experience, and if you're in a mode of owning and doing most of your work on your own real estate, because you know you can do it best, there's a couple things to think about. One is that the other people who can also do this work, you're not hiring them because they're cheaper. I mean, that's one of the reasons. But good, I mean, a handyman, for example, um, you can get a cheap handyman. They're not necessarily reliable. You can't get them on the phone. They're not going to fix the job, do the job right. Getting somebody who is not cheap but does the good job, you'll learn that. You got to realize that you're paying for quality work. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if you are not if you're not thinking about your business, working on your business instead of in your business, then you need to learn how to do that. That's the path to growing your business, is thinking about your business and having the time to do that. Not waking up every morning and having 15 different fires you got to fight for your properties. You got to run down and do this and run over and do that, and you've got a team and you've got to be there working with the team, all those things. That might be interesting and fun, and that might be really where your skills were as a background, but that those are things that you should find ways and get a good resource, talk to a coach or a mentor, or find books or whatever, but stepping out and learning how to manage that as a manager is critical. It's critical and is necessary for anything more that you want to do. If you're setting your life and these are the properties you're going to own till the day you die, then fine. But nobody really is. I mean, that's not who we are. It's not what we do. It's not really what we set out to do when we started getting into real estate. And so that's a challenge that we have to figure out. I can tell you how I did it, and but it's not going to be the same for everybody else. It's using and leveraging other skills that you've developed through your life.
Absolutely. John, you started to talk about your transition from investing in your backyard to scooting out a little bit more, an hour, 2 hours away from Seattle, and then eventually looking at other markets across the country. Was there a specific reason you decided to look outside of Seattle and to start venturing into new markets?
Uh, yes. My steps outside of the greater Seattle area, really the Western Washington area, uh, were because I thought there were good opportunities in the eastern part of our state. Those of you who know the state know that we've got a great big mountain range dividing the state, and on the west side of it is the massive population, Seattle and all the surrounding communities, and a lot of business and prosperity and technology companies and an airplane company and everything else. On the eastern side of the state is a desert. A big river, Columbia River, flows through it, and there's a lot of nice towns, cities in the eastern part of the state. A lot of them have historically been agricultural focused. There's cheap electricity. Now there's a lot of technology, data centers, and things like that. But generally, a lot of growth. There's a lot of strong, steady growth in those areas, and they're not so much, you want to use the right word, contaminated by all the things that Western Washington does. And so those were good markets to me. I liked them. I liked what was going on. They were a little more steady growth, recession resistant, and they still are. I like those markets. And that's my first step. And really my transition to other states in the country was similar to that. Was a better understanding of these are the kinds of metropolitan areas I need, or MSAs I need to be looking at. These are the qualities of an emerging market, and so these are the things that I need to look at in a market. And I had no hesitation about buying in really any other city in the U.S. It's just a matter of which ones met the qualities that I needed, these characteristics for growth and long-term growth and historical growth, and are they on the verge of a transition and an upward trajectory?
Yeah.
But yeah, those were um, that was an easy change for me to make, is looking at other markets. I've
So, John,
enjoyed it.
I get Eastern Washington, right? You talked about, hey, on the west side of Washington, you have Seattle there. I'm sure the prices were high, and you felt there was more value or opportunity in Eastern Washington. To push this a little bit more, what was the rationale to leave Eastern Washington or to expand beyond Eastern Washington? Was there something that you weren't getting there that encouraged you to look elsewhere, or did you just want more diversification? Like what really sparked you to say, "Hey, let me look in other states"?
A couple things. I could see that these markets in Eastern Washington were good, but I could also see that there were better markets. There were markets in other parts of the U.S. that he had even more of these qualities, and they were maybe a little larger and established. And then a second thing was my partnerships, is I was establishing partnerships with people who were from different parts of the country, and didn't want to limit myself to my state. There's really no reason. I mean, if the cities in Washington are good emerging growth companies, I would invest in them. And they had some other qualities that I don't think that they have. I mean, having lived here, I can see the darker side of them. But the other cities and states around the country have these qualities and even more. And that's what attracted me. For example, I'm from the East Coast, and my first properties, I like the East Coast, been all up and down it, been all those states, and I know what they are. And so some of the states in the Southeast attracted me a lot. I was looking in Southeast states, and they became some of my first markets because I liked there. Somebody said you should buy real estate in a place where you like to visit. And I thought, oh man, that really resonates with me because I like to travel and see these places, and so that's what I'll do. And I chose places that I like to visit, but also had the other attributes that I had. And I've added more preferred markets since then, but I started off in the Southeast and made them work. Made
There
those
you
problems.
go. I like what you said because I think there's some great insights. First of all, you talked about being in Seattle and liking the market. Sometimes when we talk to people, they feel like they can't invest in their home market, right? Hey, the political landscape isn't friendly to real estate investors. The prices are too high, whatever the case may be, right? Like they feel like they can't. In your case, you said, hey, I could invest in my home market, but I realized that, hey, I'm over here on the western side of Washington. There's more value, more opportunity, more, better fundamentals on the eastern part of Washington. And as you invested there, you're like, okay, what I like here, I can really expand in other parts of the country, other states where there's solid markets, maybe bigger markets, more diversification, stronger growth. Let me explore these opportunities. And then the other thing you said, which I think is vital, is you are exploring partnerships with other folks who are investing in some of these markets. And one of the biggest things that investors need to pay attention to is you have to have that boots on the ground aspect, right? Folks who really understand these markets, folks who understand how to build the right teams, how to navigate them, and build the right relationships. I mean, you and I can look at, all sorts of studies and identify what the top market is, but if we don't have the people in those markets to execute, we're not going to be successful. So it's really important to build those relationships. And that's a key insight is, hey, there are lots of countries or lots of states and cities where you can make money in markets that are solid, but make sure that the fundamentals are there as well as the team. That's really, really vital. When you think about that strategy and the success you've had as an investor, is there anything that you would attribute that success to more than anything else?
I have developed a number of ways of working with the property managers and managing the property manager and holding them accountable. They are really your day-to-day boots on the ground after you've bought the property. Once you've decided on it and you've chosen the property and have a business plan for executing and to drive value in your property, they're the ones you're to look to. You might have other people related to that team, but how you engage with your property manager is critical. And like I mentioned before, I've had some maybe not so great experiences with property managers that were just had a different focus than what I did. And I unfortunately didn't see that before I initially took them on, and I've had to transition and knowing how to do that, knowing how to get the best efforts and results out of the property managers that you use, I think is one of the key insights. I mean, you have to buy right too. You have to get in there and understand the property and the market and the sub market and what the neighborhoods looks like and what kind of retail is around there and what kind of tenants are interested in moving in, what kind of condition. All those things are critical. You have to look at that. Those are insights that you'll develop over time, but you have to have the right skilled people on in your partnership who know how to look at that, who can identify a red flag and say, this is a deal breaker, or it's just a risk we have to mitigate, and those kinds of things. But once you are in the deal, you've got your partners and you've got commitments, maybe you've got investors in your deal, and you have a lot of responsibilities, and you cannot step away from that and say, hey, it's in the hands of a professional property manager, got nothing to worry about. That is far from the case. You got to be in there holding them accountable. They've got their own objectives, and sometimes they have other priorities that are not your property, and you have to
Yeah.
understand that, and and make sure they're focused and working on it. That's one of the things that I think I do well in my partnerships and property ownership.
That's a critical point because so many people believe that they could just hire a good property manager and walk away, right? It's completely passive, right? What do I need any help for? I'll just hire this property manager and they'll take care of everything, right? And as
Yeah.
you've stated, that's just not the case. You still have to stay on top of the property manager. You got to recognize that one, they have a completely different business model than you do, right? Their compensation model is different than your compensation model. And sometimes those interests may not be aligned. Not to mention, at the end of the day, these are people, right? They're employees, right? So it's not like you're getting someone who has the equitable interest of, okay, hey, if I can drive revenue by X%, I'm going to increase my profits by X%. A lot of them, this is their job, right? They're getting a salary, they're getting their check, and they're just going to do the best they can do at that job, or maybe do the minimum amount of work at that job. So it's still on you as the property owner to drive the decisions, to be the executive, to be the asset manager. And especially if you have passive investors, no one's trying to hear that, the property manager did something, right? Ultimately, the buck has to stop with you. You got to take that responsibility. So really great insight for all of those folks who are the active investors, especially if you're working with third-party management. We just started talking about investors a little bit. At some point along your journey, you decided it was time to bring on passive investors. At what point did you know you were ready to do that? And what concerns did you have in that process?
I knew that I was ready when I realized I'm buying these properties uh, um, pretty much on my own. I had some joint venture partners, one or two early on, but really, you get tapped out after a little while, and even if you have more personal capital, you're not sure enough about your the steps that you're taking to go all in. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that for anybody. Pooling all the money, possible funds that you have out of every little corner of your personal wealth and putting it all into real estate. No, don't do that. I would not recommend it. And so at some point along the line, we all run into the point of I'm tapped out. I have no further capital that I can put into a deal, or I have limited capital. And so, however, I've gotten to the point where I bought all these properties. I've developed a lot of skills. In fact, I was just having this conversation the other day with somebody that you're to the point where you're doing all these steps. You've bought some properties, you did all these steps leading up to it, and maybe they're your own properties, but you still worked with lenders, you worked with the seller, you worked with a closing process, you did all the due diligence, and you held that seller accountable, and you got all the materials, and you did lease audits and everything along the line that you were supposed to. You bought the property, and now you're managing, or you have a property manager. There's a lot of skills that you developed that are transferable, that are you can it's said that the work involved in buying a 10 unit property is the same as buying a 100 unit, and there's a lot of truth to that. You've got skills that you can transfer, and you take into account that there are a lot of people out there who want to invest with somebody as knowledgeable as yourself. They want to do a deal, and they want to put their money into something that they don't have the time or energy or skills to own it and manage it themselves, but they know there's a great opportunity, both cash flow and appreciation, but also the tax benefits of owning real estate, and they want to be involved. And so you're their path to that. You're their way of solving a problem for them. And so I was able to see that. I mentioned that I have gone to multifamily conferences. This is an eye opener. It's like not only are you learning from the people on a stage like that, they are helping you understand the different pieces of the process, but you're standing out in the lobby talking to people, random people, walking up to them and say, "Hey, I'm John. What do you do?" And all that stuff. You learn so much from those experienced people, and you realize I can do this too. I'm here learning from other people, learning from the conference or whatever. So and you realize I can do this, and you talk to other potential partners, and next thing you know, you're looking at properties together. You're thinking about we're going to do a deal, and I have people in my network, maybe they're friends and family, or maybe they're people I've met through other sources like social media or conferences or meetups or whatever, and it's likely some of them will see what I'm presenting and understand the experiences and skills that I bring to putting a deal together and want to join in and want to be my investors. And that's the step toward owning bigger properties. You've got a smaller piece of it, but you're growing into bigger properties, and then you've got responsibilities not just for yourself, but for your investors. And but you've already proven you can handle that, and you step into these a little bit at a time and learn as you go along. You're learning from more experienced people. Always, we all are. There's always more experienced people to learn from, and you're building it step by step, and
Yeah.
you're providing a service to not just to your investors, but you're building better communities, and you're making tenants live more comfortable lives. You're providing better opportunities for them to show off a nice, clean, comfortable place that they live in.
I love it, man. You talked about a couple things. One is for you, running out of money was the thing that made you realize, hey, you know what? Maybe I should consider raising capital and working with other investors, especially knowing that there are people out there who are looking to invest passively, right? Folks want to get their money out of the stock market, want to diversify their portfolio. Know real estate's a great way to build wealth, but don't necessarily want to be a landlord themselves. Well, hey, here's an opportunity to invest with groups like yours, right? And that is a great way to think about it. And if you are looking to get active, you have to understand that this is a service industry, right? You are providing a service for other folks who want to earn passive income. Once you understand that, now it comes down to understanding your background. And you talked about it from the standpoint of building your personal portfolio, then starting to attend conferences, networking, realizing that I can do this too. Maybe we partner up with some of these groups, and then going out there and finding deals and opportunities, presenting that to friends and family, folks who are watching you and kind of know what you have. I say that a little bit differently, where it's really the three C's to raising capital or attracting capital. See, the first C is confidence. And that confidence comes from preparation. It's what you said, right? It's taking all those calls with the property manager, it's touring all those properties, it's understanding your markets, it's understanding the sub-markets, it's putting together the business plan, right? That confidence comes from being prepared. That second C is credibility. Credibility comes from the experiences you've had. Again, from the portfolio you've built or your professional experience, but also the people around you. You talked about learning from other people and their experiences. Well, this is where having a mentor or a coach comes into play. This is where having partners comes into play. This is where it's really important to be able to lend on other folks if you don't have that track record or experience for yourself. And then
Yeah.
last C is connections, right? So folks you're meeting at these conferences, friends, family, really being able to expand your network to find folks who are seeking out these opportunities. It is absolutely critical if you're looking to attract capital for deals. You don't want to hone in on one individual and pray that they invest with you, which is a mistake I see some people make all the time. It's really about expanding your audience and expanding your network to find the folks who are looking for the unique opportunity you have today. Hey, John, before we wrap and go to a round of insights, you have been able to invest in various markets across the Midwest and the Southeast region. Just tell our listeners a little bit about kind of what your portfolio looks like today and the kind of deals you go after.
Yeah, yes. I've had deals in my state of Washington, a few earlier ones, and I don't anymore. I've sold them, and I've had deals in South Carolina. It was one of my East Coast markets. Uh, Current deals in Kansas City major metro. Like that a lot. Still looking for more deals in that area, and Kansas and Missouri in general is a lot of good population areas that are growing and have good opportunities. I like Oklahoma a lot. Uh, Although if you read the evening news now, a lot of storms going across. That's kind of scary, but a lot of places are like that, the hailstorms and tornadoes. And fortunate to not have any damage on properties, but they are growing markets. Oklahoma City and Tulsa, I like those areas. I like Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington. I like Northwest Arkansas. I mean, those are absolutely growing places, and states and cities that value owners and landlords, and have created the laws and regulations in those areas that allow owners and landlords to grow and take care of tenants as well. And I have a property in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. I don't know those markets as well, but I do like the Texas markets. San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, there's great places in those areas. It takes a lot to learn them, and it's highly competitive. There's a lot of investors there, but a lot of people do well, and I like those markets as well. And other markets around the country, there's a lot of good markets. Arizona, Florida, I mean, certainly Tennessee and the Carolinas, they're awesome markets. I just don't know as much about them and have not spent a whole lot of time in those markets.
Yeah, well, I think to your point earlier, one of the best things to do is find folks who are in those markets, who do know those markets, and let them lead the way. If you want to learn more about John, check out his website. You can go to learnaboutapartments.com. Again, you can go to learnaboutapartments.com. His company is Cardinal Oak, and we'll make sure we put a link to that in our show notes. Right now, we're going to transition to our round of insights. John, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
One of my early properties, when I was buying it, I read all the seller's due diligence. I knew that it needed some work, and I had my property inspection done, and the inspection came back with a list of bullet points. And in my years of inexperience and not knowing what I didn't know, I assigned dollar values to them, and I went back to my broker and said, well, let's try to get a seller credit for it, or money from the seller at closing or a discount in the purchase price or something. And she said, yeah, you're right. In fact, identified or just called out a somewhat higher number. And I said, great, go for it. Let's get it. And the seller agreed to it right away. And we did our deal, and I was in business, and I owned the property. And maybe 6 months, a year in, I was realizing there's a lot more work that needed to be done. And particularly in the roof, I didn't have the level of due diligence that I should have had it earlier on. And a lot of things were not working. Tenants were complaining. Some tenants even went to the city, and city came out and said, you have to do this and you have to do that. And the price tag for it was significantly higher than anything I had anticipated. And I mean, I was not going to cut and run. I was not going to just put it on the market as a distress sale. I had to do these things. And so I did. I put the money in. I got these things over time fixed, and like a new roof, invested in a new roof, and not something I planned to do, but I had to do it. It paid off. It really was the right thing to do, because there were buyers who were looking for things that were not properties that were not falling apart. And I'm so glad that I did it. And I'm so much more focused on due diligence and getting the right people in to look at properties, and understanding this is not what I can do or what I should be doing. Is I need to have skilled people looking at the property and understand these things myself. My background is not construction or maintenance or buildings and systems. I understand them better now, and I can talk to property managers about them, but I know that there are people that are very good at this, and I'm bringing the right people in for the right jobs.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
One of the best tools that I have is a database I use for tracking people. It is tracking brokers. It is tracking prospective investors, existing investors, and it's called Active Campaign, and it is for communicating with people who take an interest in what I'm doing. Because not everybody, and whether it could be coming from social media, like somebody likes something that I did on social media, they don't want me picking up the phone and calling them. That's an annoyance. I would not do that. It is for managing relationships and for them to decide on their own when it's time to talk to John. I'll hear about it, and then I'll reach out and I'll track it. And I have that information in Active Campaign, and it manages so many other things. A lot of people are using these things, but it's kind of a CRM. It also is for managing communications for investors or newsletters and a lot of different things like that. But it's a great tool, Active Campaign.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
That would be Building a Story Brand, by Donald Miller. It's about marketing branding. Sad to say, was not my strength. It's kind of obvious, but I coming from a technology background, I was more nuts and bolts kind of guy, but I love the whole idea around marketing and branding. This book just really helped me think about who I am, who we are, and what we're trying to achieve, and how to build that story, how to communicate who I am, and understand who I am, and then be able to communicate that. I think it's a wonderful book, and it's applicable to so many different skills and trades and industries and people trying to get things done on their own and with the teams.
What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
The best habit I think that I have is getting up early. Nobody likes to hear, oh, just get up early and get more things done, but it's so true. In the early morning, I am able to do the simple things like respond to LinkedIn posts, and I'm more creative in the morning. I can respond to emails, and I can plan my day. The fires that I know are going to come up, I can anticipate. I kind of know the things that are going on, and I can get a better idea of how to prioritize my day the next few days as well. There's just a lot of constructive work that can happen early in the morning. So early riser.
What's your number one insight for growing a syndication business?
How much I enjoy working with people. Coming from the technology industry, sometimes they just sit us in a dark corner, and we're happy there, and we go to work and we produce what we need, and we make our deliveries. But it's so much more fulfilling seeing the impact that you can have on other people, and to make friends and to talk to other people who are doing similar things that I am and understand them. And syndicating is that. It is talking to, you need investors. And like you said, the 3 C's, those are critical for finding investors, having the confidence and being able to raise capital and meeting people, ultimately meeting people. But it's more than investors. It's partners, and it's people who are going to perform work for you. It's vendors and building the relationships. For example, I mentioned the multifamily conferences. I just went to one about a month ago, and more than half the people I talked to were people that I already knew, that I'd met before, and I was renewing relationships and catching up and sharing personal details. And it's just friendships and relationships that have been such a joy to experience through syndications.
Let's lighten the mood here. You are in Seattle. Give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Uh, I will tell you, I'm specifically in the city of Renton. It's a smaller suburb. I mean, Renton's claim to fame is that's where one of Boeing's two big manufacturing plants are, 737s they make in Renton, Washington, and still do. So that's where I live. My favorite place is a restaurant in Renton. It's the Melrose Grill. And I would say they have the best steaks in the greater Seattle area. There's another restaurant in downtown Seattle that stakes claim to that as well. Um, uh, Melrose Grill has them beat. That's the place to go.
Melrose Grill it is. John, you gave some great information. I loved hearing about your background and making your transition from W-2 employee into real estate, building your own personal portfolio first before realizing that, hey, I'm running out of money. Maybe I should work with other people, right? So building out your syndication business, investing in different markets, and giving us some tools and insights on some of the things we need to be paying attention to, both from a market standpoint, as well as making sure that we are expanding our relationships and protecting our investors. Again, if you want to learn more about John and his business, you can go to his website, learnaboutapartments.com. John, thanks again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.